Let's talk about the tracheobronchial tree. This is a model of the tracheobronchial tree. It looks pretty intimidating, but it's really not so bad once you've sort of gone over it once or twice. And let's go ahead and do that. We're looking at the tracheobronchial tree as if we were looking from the front. This is the distal trachea, and these are supposed to represent the rings of the trachea. These tracheal rings are incomplete. Let's flip around to the back here, and you can see that this flat surface right here represents the posterior tracheal membrane. So the rings, the cartilage parts of these rings are horseshoe shaped, and they're open in the back. The trachea splits at the carina. So this is the carina right here, and you've got a split into a right main bronchus and into a left main bronchus. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the right bronchial tree in a little bit of detail, and then we'll switch over to consider the left bronchial tree. You don't have to know all these details for your dissection, but they are not that difficult to learn, and frankly, they're sort of fun to go over. So let's go ahead and go over those. The first thing that come off of the right main bronchus is the right upper lobe bronchus. The right upper lobe bronchus divides into three segments. There's an anterior segment, that makes sense. This is going anteriorly. There's an apical segment, that makes sense. This is going in an apical direction. And there's a posterior segment, and that makes sense also because that's going posteriorly. So far this is not too bad. You start off with the right upper lobe bronchus, which divides into three segments that are named in a very commonsensical sort of way. After the right upper lobe bronchus comes off, you're left with something called the Bronchus Intermedius, which is what this is. The Bronchus Intermedius divides into a right middle lobe and into a right lower lobe. Let's go over the right middle lobe segments. There's a medial segment, which is what this is right here, and there's a lateral segment. That's not too bad either. Medial segment and the lateral segment. And in real life, it's very easy to tell them apart. It's a little bit difficult on this model. Let's go ahead and talk about the right lower lobe bronchus. The first thing that comes off of the right lower lobe bronchus is this segment right here. This is the superior segment of the right lower lobe. Then you're left with the so-called basilar segments, and those are these guys right down here. Let's go over those. The first one that I can recognize on a CT scan, and the first one that you can see here, is known as the medial basal segment, and that makes sense. It is indeed medial. The next one is the anterior basal segment right here. Then you've got the lateral basal segment right down here, and then you've got the posterior basal segment right here. On the right side, you have a total of 10 segments. Let's go over the left side very briefly. On the left side, you've got a left main bronchus. Instead of having 3 lobes on the left, you've only got 2 lobes. This is the left upper lobe bronchus right here. It's going to divide into an apico-posterior segment, which is right here, and an anterior segment, which is right here. This is the lingular bronchus right here. So you don't have a separate right middle lobe bronchus, but you do have this lingular bronchus right here. And it's going to have 2 branches, or 2 segments, an inferior segment right here and a superior segment right here. Let's go ahead and look at the left lower lobe. Again, you have a superior segment of the left lower lobe. And then the left lower lobe does something a little bit funny. On the left side, you have an anteromedial segment, which is right here. Then you've got a posterior basilar segment and a lateral basilar segment, which is right here. So on the left side, you only have 8 segments. On the right side, you have 10 segments. Thank you.